Chapter 171. At the Hummer family's press conference, the once bustling hall began to slowly empty out. Initially, everyone was talking about Eternamax, but gradually the conversation switched to another topic. Hey, have you heard? The Harmon family also held a press conference to launch their product, Immortunol. They partnered up with Mr. Shane, and its effects are incredible. It's said to be the best supplement ever developed. Is it true? Can it compare to Eternamax? Eternamax is garbage compared to Immortunol. To tell you the truth, my friend's great-aunt just ate one pill of Immortunol, and she jumped out of her wheelchair. Are you exaggerating? Don't believe me. Let's go and see for yourself. As news of Immortunol spread, more and more people left to gather at the Harmon family's press conference. In contrast, the number of people at the Hummer family's conference dwindled. Gradually, Edwin finally realized that something was wrong. Butler, what's going on? Why did the number of our guests suddenly decrease so much? Edwin asked. I don't know, it's strange. The butler was puzzled by the situation. What are you standing there for? Go and find out. Edwin snapped. Yes, sir. The butler dared not hesitate and ran out in a hurry. He returned after a moment, sweating profusely. Sir Hummer. Something terrible happened. Natasha is holding a press conference to launch a new product called Immortunol. Those missing guests have all gone over to their conference. What? We've been going all out on marketing and promotion. How could Natasha have the ability to steal my clients? Edwin's face darkened. It's because of Dr. Shane. It's said that Immortunol was developed by the Harmon family and Dr. Shane, so people are flocking to it. The butler wiped away his sweat. Dr. Shane. Let's go and take a look for ourselves. Edwin frowned. At this moment, he couldn't suppress his curiosity any longer. Eternamax was the result of years of research by the Harmon family, and it was top secret. Even if it was Dr. Shane, he couldn't develop a new medicine comparable to Eternamax in just a few days. When Edwin arrived, he was shocked by the scene before him. He realized that the Harmon family's press conference was far more lively than his own. All the bigwigs and celebrities had turned up. Most importantly, everyone who had tried Immortunol gave it high praise. Edwin was curious and stopped a young man, who was passing by. Young man, did you try the Immortunol? Yes, I did. What's wrong? The young man nodded. What do you think of the effects of the medicine? What do I think about it? Of course, I feel like I'm on top of the world. Is it really that powerful? How does it compare to Eternamax? Eternamax. No one would eat that now. The young man chuckled. Edwin froze, his eyes twitching frantically. Unwilling to accept it, he asked several more people in succession. They all said the same thing. Impossible. How could a new medicine like Immortunol compare to Eternamax? Edwin frowned deeply, still unconvinced. As he looked around at the people praising Immortunol, he couldn't help feeling a little annoyed. After thinking for a moment, Edwin whispered a few words to his butler, who nodded and left immediately. As time passed, the conference at the Hummer family gradually quieted down. Chapter 172. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at the Harmon family's press conference became increasingly lively. Just when Natasha thought that everything was going smoothly, a scream suddenly rang out from the crowd. Everyone turned to look. An old man had suddenly collapsed to the ground, convulsing and foaming at the mouth. Within moments, he was unconscious. Dad, what's wrong with you? Please get up, cried a middle-aged man next to him, panic-stricken. I'm a doctor, let me take a look. A bald man quickly stepped forward to check the old man's breathing and pulse. With a sigh, he shook his head. He's already dead. Dead. Everyone was shocked by the news. How could this happen? He seemed perfectly fine just a moment ago. Who knows? He looked energetic. It's so strange that he died suddenly. Could it be a heart attack? Whispers and murmurs of suspicion filled the air. It can't be. My dad couldn't have died. We made sure he had regular checkups, and he was always healthy. The middle-aged man sobbed. It looks like he might have been poisoned. Did he eat anything earlier? The bald doctor asked. We didn't eat anything today. The middle-aged man trailed off before suddenly remembering something. Wait. My dad took a morphine earlier, and now he is dead. The medicine must be toxic. Toxic. Everyone was shocked to hear this. After all, they had all taken the same medicine earlier. How could this be? Natasha frowned. Having such an incident during the press conference was not a good sign. Regardless of whether the old man's death was related to amortinol, it would have a huge impact on Harman Pharmaceuticals' reputation. Once the label, toxic, was attached to amortinol, it would not be able to sell at all. It's all because of you. It's all your fault. You killed my father by selling fake medicine. You owe me his life. The middle-aged man stood up and roared at Natasha. He rushed forward to attack her but was stopped by the Harman family's bodyguards. The cause of your father's death is not clear yet. Whether it is related to amortinol still needs further investigation, Natasha said sternly. There's nothing more to investigate. Everyone saw it clearly just now. My father was healthy before he took your medicine. After taking it, he suddenly died. The man shouted. My father was killed by you. You wicked businesswoman. You look my father's life. He kneeled beside the body, crying bitterly. My poor father, you died in vain. I'm sorry that I couldn't avenge your death. I hope that they will get divine retribution from the heavens. It was a heart-wrenching sight that moved everyone to tears. At that moment, everyone turned to Natasha. The gazes had changed from ones of respect to ones of scorn. Natasha. I never knew you were such a despicable person. For the sake of profit, you would actually sell fake medicine. Quentin jumped to his feet and accused her loudly. Stop talking nonsense. Amortinol is not poisonous. Natasha frowned. Then how do you explain the old man's sudden death after taking your medicine? Quentin pressed. Natasha was at a loss for words. The old man's death has nothing to do with amortinol, Dustin spoke up. He had been watching from the side all along. Who are you to say that the medicine is not at fault? Quentin retorted coldly. I can show you that the medicine had nothing to do with his death. If you don't believe me, I can ask the old man personally. Dustin stepped forward with a calm expression. Chapter 173. Ask the old man. Quentin first looked stunned, then his face darkened. Punk. Do you think I'm an idiot? The old man is already dead. How could you ask him anything? He may be dead, but his body is still warm. Coincidentally, I have a way to bring the dead back to life. Dustin smiled faintly. Nonsense. Do you think you're a god? Bring the dead back to life. Why don't you say you know how to fly? Quentin sneered. Who is this young man? How dare he speak so arrogantly? Yeah. Even drive. Shane wouldn't dare say that he could bring the dead back to life. This kid is really too conceited. In my opinion, he just wants to show off in front of Ms. Harman and impress her. In response to Dustin's words, the people around him were filled with scum. The old man was already dead, how could he bring a dead person back to life? Wasn't he spouting nonsense? Whether it's nonsense or not, we'll find out soon enough. Dustin didn't explain further and walked up to the old man. Hey. What are you doing? I'm warning you, don't mess around with me. My father's body is still warm, so no one can touch him. I've reported this to the authorities, and the police will be here soon. The middle-aged man looked wary. Don't be so agitated, I just want to take a look at your father. Maybe I can give you the justice you deserve. Dustin said. I don't even know who you are, why should I let you examine him? The middle-aged man shouted. Mr. Rhys is the chief physician of Harman Pharmaceuticals. If your father really had an accident because of ingesting amortinol, we are willing to take full responsibility, Natasha spoke up. Although she didn't know what Dustin was going to do, she supported him unconditionally. If he's a doctor, then let him take a look. If it's really a mortunol that killed him, we can testify for you. Many others chimed in as well. Dustin piped up when he saw the man's hesitation. What? Do you want your father to die under such vague circumstances? All right. I look forward to seeing what tricks you can play. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and stepped aside. Dustin squatted down and examined the body briefly. There's no breath or pulse. It seems like this old man is truly dead. Since the deceased is foaming at the mouth, it appears to be a case of death due to poisoning. Listen. Did you all hear that? Even the Harmon family's physician said it was death by poisoning. My father was poisoned to death by a mortunol. The middle-aged man shouted. As soon as the people heard his claims, their faces were filled with shock. They started pointing fingers at Natasha and whispering in hushed voices, their eyes full of suspicion. Dustin. What nonsense are you talking about? Did you even do a proper examination? You are obviously trying to throw the Harmons under the bus. Jessica hissed under her breath. She couldn't help but suspect that Dustin was a spy planted by the Hummer family. In such a critical moment, he actually said that the old man died of poisoning. Wasn't he just adding fuel to the fire? Cousin, it seems like your little boyfriend here has rocks in his head. With his statement, he is confirming that you did sell fake medicine, which caused someone's death. Quentin almost laughed out loud. Could such stupid people actually exist? He was just making matters worse. What an interesting development, Edwin smirked to himself as he stood among the crowd. He couldn't believe that Dustin would add insult to injury. This was more than what he expected. Based on your reactions, I believe you all trust what I said, right? Dustin stared directly at the man. We believe it. Of course, we believe it. You are an honest and upright man by publicly exposing the dark side of the Harmon family. The middle-aged man nodded vigorously. While he was praising Dustin, the man couldn't hide the faint smile on his lips. Although his smile quickly disappeared, it was still caught by Dustin. Now that you believe me, I'm going to save your father, Dustin declared with a cheeky smile. Save? My father is already dead. How can you save him? The middle-aged man was stunned. I have my ways, Dustin said. All of a sudden, he slapped the old man's face. There was a loud crack as the old man's dentures flew out and fell directly into someone's glass. Before everyone could react, Dustin continued slapping the old man until his cheeks were swollen and his nose was bleeding. Hey! Are you crazy? Why are you hitting my father? The man's face turned as pale as a sheet. I'm trying to save your father. This is a secret technique that can bring people back from the dead. You shall see for yourself soon, Dustin said as he slapped the old man a few more times, increasing the intensity. The old man's head swelled up like a balloon from Dustin's assault. Tears were flowing down his cheeks. Stop it. You lunatic, stop it. The middle-aged man was furious and rushed forward to hit Dustin, but Dustin pushed him away easily. Is this guy a real doctor? I've never seen such a way of saving people before. What bizarre technique is this? He's clearly just beating up a dead body. Is he insane? How could the doctor beat up the old man so violently when he is already dead? The doctor's character is corrupt. The Harmon family is completely rotten to the core. What is the world coming to? In response to Dustin's absurd behavior, the crowd began condemning him, filled with righteous indignation. The deceased should be respected. Beating up a corpse like this was simply inhumane. This guy's crazy. He's beating up my father's corpse. The Harmon family killed my father, and now they are treating his body with disrespect. Is there anyone who can help me? The middle-aged man slumped on the ground, crying bitterly. Dustin, stop it. Jessica's face turned pale. He's gone mad. This guy is out of his mind. Quentin shook his head. What's going on? Ruth was stunned. This is getting more and more interesting. Edwin gloated. Just as everyone thought that Dustin had gone insane, there was suddenly a cry of surprise from the crowd. Hey, I think I just saw the dead man's finger move. Did you see it too? I thought I was seeing things. Not only did his fingers move, but look. Tears are flowing out of his eyes too. Incredulous, the crowd noticed something strange about the dead body. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Could slapping someone's face really bring them back from the dead? He's pretty resilient. Dustin sneered as he stopped the assault. It seems like I need to go all out to wake him up. Ruth, bring me my knife, the one I used to slaughter pigs. I would have to make a cut on his head to bring him back to life. As soon as these words were spoken, the corpse on the ground couldn't bear it any longer and sat up with a scream. Chapter 174. When the old man suddenly sat up, all the guests were startled. Some of the women screamed frantically, losing their composure. It's a zombie. Shocked to the core, the crowd scattered in all directions. No one expected that the motionless corpse would suddenly spring to life. It was such a terrifying moment. Dad. Why you're not dead? The middle-aged man pretended to be shocked. Yes, I'm not dead. The old man gave a forced smile. His voice was slurred as his dentures were knocked out. Combined with his swollen cheeks, the old man a comical sight. Oh my God. This young man could even revive the dead. How could this be? No words could express my amazement right now. What a strange way to treat people. Are medical techniques nowadays getting more straightforward? Staring at the old man, who was obviously alive and kicking, there was pandemonium in the hall. Some of the onlookers were shocked, and some were curious. Hey, I saved your father's life. Is it too much to ask for you to show some gratitude? Dustin smirked. You bastard. Even if my father survived this ordeal, it's because of his good luck. It doesn't change the fact that amortinol is poisonous. The middle-aged man was livid. That's right. I almost died after eating your medicine. Now, I'm still feeling sore all over. The old man gritted his teeth and looked resentful. After enduring such a fierce beating, he couldn't let Dustin go without extorting sufficient compensation. Oh. Where else do you feel uncomfortable? Let me have a look. Dustin stepped forward. In fright, the old man backed away repeatedly. What are you doing? I'm warning you, stay away from me. Don't be nervous. Your illness is not fully cured yet, as you have just regained consciousness. Here, let me diagnose you for a complete recovery, just in case. Dustin smiled. Dustin, the knife you wanted is here. At that moment, Ruth ran over excitedly. In her hand was a large kitchen knife that she somehow managed to find. Perfect timing. Although it's bigger than what I'm used to, it's just right to crack open a skull. Dustin took the kitchen knife and swung it around. Crack open my skull. Hearing this, the old man trembled all over. Son, let's not waste any more time. I think I need to go to the hospital for a full examination right away. Oh, right. Of course, we have to go to the hospital first. Seeing the unfavorable situation, the middle-aged man quickly helped the old man to his feet and tried to run away inconspicuously. Did I say you could go? Dustin took a step forward and grabbed the old man by his hair, pulling him back. I always treat my patients to the best of my ability, even after the deaths. How can I ignore it when you are so sick? With that, he started brandishing the kitchen knife back and forth. Don't. I'm not sick, I've already recovered. The old man shivered in fright. Don't be stubborn, your illness is life-threatening. Everyone witnessed it just now. Dustin said earnestly. That's right, old man. If you're sick, you should seek treatment as soon as possible. You shouldn't refuse his good intentions. Someone piped up. That's right, this young man is highly skilled in medicine. You should trust him. Nothing bad will happen. The others agreed and began to persuade the old man. I'm fine. I'm really fine. The old man shook his head frantically, tears streaming down his face. Lie down and don't move. Let me see where to make the first incision, Dustin ordered, pinning the helpless old man down. Let him go immediately. You're committing murder. The middle-aged man panicked and tried to stop Dustin, but was held back by several bodyguards. According to my diagnosis, you are in grave condition. Let's start by cracking your skull open, and then we will move on to cutting your abdomen, Dustin trailed off, lifting his knife to strike. Wait. I'm not sick, I'm really not. Someone paid me to pretend to be dead. Realizing his life was at stake, the old man finally revealed the truth with a wail. He was paid off. Pretended to be dead. As soon as everyone heard this, their faces went red with fury and outrage. What a bunch of scammers. How dare you have the audacity to cause trouble here? I can't believe I felt sorry for you just now. It turns out that you're all liars. Young man, just chop 'em up. Trash like them deserves to die. After learning the truth, the crowd erupted into chaos. Some of them even threatened to get physical. Tell me, who put you up to this? Dustin held his knife to the old man's neck. I don't know, we were just paid to do this. We don't know anything else. The old man shook his head. Please spare us, we won't do this again. The middle-aged man spoke up, frightened for his life. They were just scoundrels who preyed on the weak. Once the true identities were exposed, they lost all their courage. Take these troublemakers away. At Natasha's command, the two were quickly taken away. She didn't need an answer. She already knew who was behind all this. Useless idiots. In the crowd, Edwin snorted coldly and left. He knew he had lost today. All his schemes had come to nothing. It's over, we're done for. Quentin's face was pale with despair. The initial glimmer of hope was instantly dashed in the blink of an eye. If Immortunal was successfully launched, how could he sell his Etonamax? He had put in his entire fortune. Dustin, how did you know that the old man was pretending to be dead? I saw that he wasn't breathing. Ruth couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. That old man was using a technique called breath holding. That's why he could pretend to be dead. I'm familiar with many of these tricks used by scammers everywhere, it's not even worth mentioning. Dustin replied with a faint smile. Oh, I see. It's a good thing you figured it out, or else things would have gone terribly today. Ruth patted her chest in relief. Mr. Rhys, you are indeed amazing. You exposed the deception of those two ruffians effortlessly. My admiration for you is immeasurable. At that moment, Malcolm came over to flatter Dustin. Just sitting there quietly wasn't really his thing. Dr. Shane, he just stumbled upon the solution by chance. How can you lower yourself to his level? Jessica gave Dustin a cold glance before smiling at Drive. Shane. If it weren't for your help in developing Immortunal, the Harmon family would be in huge trouble. You are the biggest hero of the day. What are you talking about? Who said I developed the Immortunal? Malcolm frowned. What? Jessica was momentarily stunned. She exclaimed, who else has the ability to do that besides you? You really have no eye for talent. The mastermind behind Immortunal is none other than Mr. Rhys beside you. Malcolm rolled his eyes. What? At this revelation, Jessica was instantly dumbfounded. Chapter 175. After a stormy event, the Harmon family's press conference ended successfully. On the other hand, the influential Hummer family's press conference ended in dismal failure. The emergence of Immortunal dealt a huge blow to the sales of Etonamax. Compared to another medicine with better efficacy and a cheaper price, Etonamax was regarded as garbage. The Hummer family's Etonamax couldn't be sold at all. In the end, they were stuck with piles of rotting inventory. The meticulous game planned by Edwin was a complete failure. Although this disaster was unable to weaken the Hummer family's foundation, it still caused them heavy losses. After the press conference, Dustin was about to say goodbye when he was stopped by Ruth at the door. Dustin, I need a favor from you. What is it? Dustin asked suspiciously. I'm going to a reunion with some of my classmates later, can you come with me and be my bodyguard? Ruth was very straightforward. The Harmon family has so many bodyguards, why do you need me? I'm not interested, Dustin refused. How can those men compare to you? Well, to be honest with you, there's a really annoying guy among my classmates who's been pursuing me. I told him I have a boyfriend, but he doesn't believe me. That's why I need you to come along. Ruth pouted. In conclusion, you're just using me as an excuse. That makes me even less interested. Dustin shrugged. Hey. I consider you a friend, and you won't even help me with this small matter. Where's your loyalty? Ruth had a displeased expression on her face. What do you mean? Don't talk nonsense. Dustin's expression changed as he looked around nervously. Don't pretend you didn't hear me. Ruth crossed her arms smugly. Dustin opened his mouth to explain, but Ruth interrupted him. I don't care. If you don't help me out, I'll tell my mom. What? Dustin nodded in alarm. All right. I'll just keep you company. Are you happy now? He didn't expect this little girl to resort to such a move. He really had to admire her persistence. That's more like it. Ruth smirked and pulled Dustin out the door. It was the evening at the Phoenix karaoke, in a private room. Sheila sat on the sofa listlessly, propping her chin on her hands. Before her, a group of young men and women were singing and rapping, having a great time. Sheila, you said you were bored out of your mind in the villa. I took a huge risk to bring you out, but why are you still being mopey? Claudia, who was sitting next to her, couldn't help feeling puzzled. Ever since her illness was cured, Sheila, who was usually lively and cheerful, seemed to be acting weird. These past 2 days, she had no appetite and seemed to wander around mindlessly. Maybe my body hasn't fully recovered yet, Sheila lazily replied. Is that so? Claudia looked skeptical. Sheila, can I ask you something? At that moment, a young man suddenly cut in with a bright smile. Did you inform Ruth about this gathering? I haven't been able to contact her lately. Of course I did. We're all good friends, how could I leave her out? Sheila nodded. That's great. It's been a while since I've last seen Ruth, I wonder how she is doing. The young man smiled in relief. Nigel, I advise you to give up on Ruth. She's not interested in you. Sheila was very straightforward. Where there's a will, there's a way. Maybe one day, Ruth will be moved by my true feelings. Nigel wasn't perturbed at all. True feelings. Nigel, you seem to have a new girlfriend every month. It's possible that you change girlfriends as frequently as someone changes clothes. Claudia sneered. Claudia. Don't talk nonsense, I'm a loyal person. Nigel looked embarrassed. Okay. You're loyal, you're not a playboy. Claudia didn't bother to argue. Her duty was to protect Sheila. She had no interest in the love affairs of these young men and women. Just as they were talking, the door to the private room suddenly opened. Ruth, who was dressed luxuriously, entered the room, followed closely by Dustin. Ruth, you're finally here. Please, have a seat. Nigel was overjoyed when he saw Ruth arrive. He quickly poured Ruth a glass of juice, fawning over her. Dustin! Sheila exclaimed and stood up suddenly. Her overreaction took Claudia by surprise. Why was she so energetic all of a sudden? Following her gaze, Claudia noticed Dustin standing there. She couldn't help furrowing her brows. Could it be that Sheila liked him? Dustin, why are you here? Sheila greeted him with joy, to the point of ignoring Ruth's presence. Ms. Murray. Dustin was slightly surprised. What a coincidence. He didn't expect to meet her here. Sheila, do you two know each other? Ruth stared at the both of them in astonishment. I had fallen ill 2 days ago. It was Dustin who saved me. Sheila smiled sweetly. Is that so? As fate would have it, both of you have met again. Ruth had a meaningful smile on her face as well. Yes, it must be destiny. Sheila nodded energetically. She completely forgot about being bored. Ruth, who is this guy? I haven't seen him around before. Nigel narrowed his eyes and stared at Dustin with an unfriendly expression. Two beautiful women were both fussing around Dustin and being so affectionate with him. This made Nigel green with envy. Oh, I forgot to introduce him. This is my boyfriend, Dustin. Ruth raised her chin proudly. Boyfriend. Upon hearing this, Nigel's face darkened. As for Sheila, the happiness she had shown earlier was instantly replaced by disappointment and sadness. Who knew that Dustin had already been taken by her good friend? Chapter 176. Ruth, when did you get a boyfriend? Why wasn't I informed? Nigel's face turned ugly as he stared at Dustin with hostility. Do I need to report to you when I have a boyfriend? You really think too highly of yourself. Ruth rolled her eyes. She had already rejected Nigel multiple times, but he just wouldn't give up and continued to pester her. I'm just worried that you might be deceived. There are a lot of con artists these days who use the good looks to cheat people out of their wealth. Nigel said in a mocking tone. That's not true. Dustin is not a con man. Sheila quickly defended him. When everyone fixed their gazes on her, Sheila realized that she had spoken out of turn and immediately shut her mouth. Murray, what's with the sachet on your neck? Dustin suddenly noticed something unusual. Is there a problem? Sheila picked up the sachet and examined it. Throw it away. It's a little suspicious. Dustin shook his head. Hey, what do you mean? This aromatic sachet can calm the mind and improve sleep. How suspicious can it be? Claudia was displeased. I'm just telling the truth, Dustin replied calmly. If you're not sure, then shut up and stop being a smart aleck. Claudia didn't mince her words. Claudia. Sheila pouted in annoyance. All right. It's just a sachet. What's there to argue about? Come on, let's sit down and enjoy ourselves. Ruth pulled Sheila to sit down beside her and started chattering away. Dustin was left feeling a little left out. Claudia glared at him and turned away in a huff. For some reason, she always felt uneasy around Dustin. Claudia, who is this guy anyway? Nigel narrowed his eyes at Dustin. He's nothing special, just a doctor from the countryside. If you really want to know about him, he's skilled in the use of obscure hidden weapons, Claudia said coldly. I thought he was some big shot. Turns out, he's just a doctor. Hey, you there. Don't blame me for not warning you, you won't fit in our circle. If you have some brains, you'll leave on your own initiative. Nigel sneered with disdain. That's right, a burn like you doesn't deserve to be Ruth's boyfriend, let alone compete with Mr. Lincoln. Another girl dressed in yellow taunted Dustin. Oh, so what? Dustin remained expressionless. So, you better have some self-awareness. Don't embarrass yourself. Do you see the Patek Philippe watch on Mr. Lincoln's wrist? You'll never earn that much money in your lifetime. Oh, so what? It seems like you still can't comprehend Mr. Lincoln's background. Let me educate you then. Mr. Lincoln's family dabbles in real estate located within Millsburg, owning assets worth several $1 billion. Their family's network is spread throughout the marketplace and the underworld. The girl in yellow said arrogantly. Oh, so what? Not only does Mr. Lincoln have a strong family background, but he's also extremely outstanding. He graduated from Oxford University and earns millions of dollars every year. Besides that, he has practiced martial arts since a young age. Due to his natural talents, he was invited to be a member of the Martial Arts Association. He's truly accomplished in both literature and martial arts. Oh, so what? With Mr. Lincoln's identity and abilities, he is in the spotlight wherever he goes. A loser like you can never compare to him. Oh, so what? Hey, can't you say anything else? Oh, so what? The girl in yellow rolled her eyes. Her face turned red with anger and disgust. It was so damn infuriating to talk to this guy. Punk, you've got a sharp tongue, but what good does it do? You will always be inferior to me in every way. In the face of my complete dominance, sweet talk and flattery will get you nowhere. Nigel sneered. Oh. So what? Dustin retorted. You. Nigel's mouth twitched, feeling annoyed. Damn it, why was this punk repeating the same sentence over and over again? Couldn't they have a decent conversation? Just as they were talking, they were interrupted by a commotion outside the door. Stop right there. This place has been booked for another event. Everyone who is not involved, please leave. Surround them. Don't let anyone escape. Amidst curdling screams and cries, the door to the private room burst open. A group of masked assassins dressed in black rushed in with an imposing aura. The bodyguards guarding the door were all taken out. Who are you people? Who let you in? Get out. The girl in yellow stood up angrily. Fuck you. The assassin's leader slapped her and sent her flying. What arrogance. How dare you have the audacity to stir up trouble here? Nigel jumped up in a rage. Our target is Sheila Murray. Anyone who is not involved, get out of here. The assassin's leader shouted. What? Claudia frowned, on high alert. Judging from their attire, these assassins were most likely the same ones who ambushed them a few days ago. Bastards, who do you think you are, demanding to hand Sheila over? If you don't want to die, get the hell out of here. Nigel's gaze was ferocious. What? Are you trying to save the damsel in distress? The assassin's leader eyed Nigel carefully. So what if I do? Nigel puffed out his chest. You foolish idiot. Kill him. The leader ordered his men without hesitation. Yes, sir. The other assassins drew their swords and attacked Nigel. How dare you show off such petty tricks in front of me? Nigel laughed coldly. He rushed towards the assassins and gave them a roundhouse kick in the guts. His attack was swift and vicious. In a matter of seconds, he had defeated all of the assassins. After finishing them off, he struck a confident pose. Oh my God. Mr. Lincoln is amazing. Everyone's spirits were lifted upon seeing his victory. Some of the girls couldn't help but scream with adoration on their faces. These punks are no match for me. Nigel turned around and flashed a handsome smile to his fans. However, at the next second, a fist the size of a sandbag hit him square in the face. Nigel was caught by surprise. The attack caused him to become disoriented and his nose to bleed profusely. Nigel's high spirits were short-lived. Chapter 177. You attacked out of turn. Nigel held his bleeding nose and scowled at the assassin's leader. Damn it, he didn't even have a chance to show off in front of Ruth. Where were his manners? It's your fault for getting distracted in battle. Are you tired of living? The leader sneered. Scumbag, you are getting on my nerves. I'll give you one last chance to kneel and beg for mercy, otherwise I will roundhouse kick you in the ass. Nigel glared at him viciously. As he threatened, Nigel leaped into the air and did a somersault, looking quite impressive. Arrogant fool. The assassin's leader's eyes were cold as he and his remaining men rushed toward Nigel at once. Be careful, Mr. Lincoln. The girls exclaimed in shock. Don't overestimate yourself. Nigel reared fearlessly as he took a step back to perform his special move. He spun around like a spinning top, attacking the assassins ferociously. His kicks were merciless and deadly. Anyone who got close to Nigel was knocked down easily like dominoes. Even the assassin's leader could not withstand Nigel's attacks and was blown off his feet. In just a minute, all the assassins were defeated. For that moment, Nigel seemed unrivaled and invincible. Wow. Nigel is amazing. Oh my goodness, his fighting technique is cut of this world. As expected of Mr. Lincoln, he is truly a terrifying martial artist. Looking at the number of assassins were lying incapacitated on the ground, everyone started complimenting Nigel. Their eyes were shining as they rained praise on their hero. This victory is not worth mentioning. They are just small fries. Nigel stood with his hands behind his back, feigning nonchalance. However, he couldn't help but steal a glance at Ruth while he spoke, with a haughty expression on his face. Mr. Lincoln, you are incredible. You make all of us feel safe just by having you around. Any girl would be lucky to have you as a boyfriend. The girl in yellow held her hands to her chest, looking up at Nigel with admiration. You're flattering me. Nigel smiled modestly. It's only natural for a man to protect a woman. I'm not like some coward who hides at the back and relies on women for protection. That's really pathetic. Nigel looked at Dustin intentionally to prove his point. Hey, you. Sident, you have a sharp tongue. Why are you not saying anything now? Are you dumb? The girl in yellow sneered, her face full of disdain. If you ask me, someone here is all talk and no action. Most of the time, he is as arrogant as a peacock. However, when things go wrong, he is the first person to flee. Ruth. Now it's obvious which choice is better, right? If it weren't for Mr. Lincoln, we wouldn't have been able to fight against these vicious people. That's right. When looking for a boyfriend, we should find a real man like Mr. Lincoln. As for the guy next to you, you should forget about him. What's the use of having a cowardly and timid man around? At that moment, everyone was gossiping about the two of them. Nigel proved his bravery and strength, while Dustin did nothing like a coward. Comparing the two, it was clear who was better. Dustin, why didn't you do anything just now? Listening to the harsh comments of those around her, Ruth couldn't help but frown. She knew that Dustin was skilled in martial arts, although not necessarily stronger than Nigel. However, dealing with a few petty assassins shouldn't be a problem. These small fries don't interest me. Dustin said nonchalantly. Small fries. You may be a coward, but your words are quite the opposite. Just admit that you are pathetic. How dare you find excuses for yourself? He only knows how to talk big, but he's actually just a coward. What a wimp, disgusting loser. Remaining silent would have been better for Dustin, as anything he said only led to contempt. Punk, it's obvious that you don't have the guts nor the ability to fight. Why pretend to be tough? If you kneel down and beg, I might teach you a few moves so you won't wet yourself from fear the next time. Nigel sneered. If you're so capable, then take down those two behind you first. Dustin pointed his chin to the door. Nigel turned around in surprise and saw that there were indeed two more people. Both of them were bald, one dressed in green and the other in black. They were muscular and burly men, with fierce eyes and bulging biceps. Oh. Who are these two men who don't fear death? Nigel smirked scornfully. Was it you who injured our men? The bald man in green spoke first. Yes, it's me. What are you going to do about it? What? Do you want to have a last of my roundhouse kick too? Nigel replied arrogantly. Roundhouse kick. Hey, trash. The green baldy sneered. Fool. How dare you look down on me? Today, I'll let you witness my special move, the whirlwind kick. As Nigel spoke, he leaped into the air. Whirling around, he kicked up a fierce tornado that looked very impressive. The girls around him were dazzled by his moves. Mr. Lincoln, go for it. Take them down. Full of admiration, they cheered Nigel on. Gathering his strength, Nigel smashed a powerful blow into the bald man's skull. A muffled sound was heard. However, the bald man in green was unscathed by the attack. He didn't even move a muscle, just slightly tilted his head. On the other hand, Nigel's bones were fractured, and his whole body went numb. You. Nigel was stunned, his face full of disbelief. Even when he attacked using his full power, he still couldn't break his opponent's defense. In contrast, his leg was shattered by the reaction force. What kind of monster was this that popped out of nowhere? Whirlwind kick. Is that all? The bald man in green sneered and grabbed Nigel's leg. He flung Nigel up into the air, smashing into the ceiling. After that, his body fell to the ground, flattened like a mere bug. Before Nigel could get up, a deafening sound was heard as the bald man slammed Nigel's face deeper into the ground, causing the floor to crack. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose, and he couldn't even scream in agony. His body was severely injured, with countless fractures all over. You're not even worth my time. The bald man in green sneered with an expression of disdain. When they saw Nigel lying motionless on the ground, everyone was stunned. Their eyes widened in shock. Chapter 178. There was pin-drop silence in the private room. At a loss for words, everyone was aghast at what had happened. No one expected the twist of events. Just a minute ago, Nigel was their hero, flaunting his strength and skills, but now he was lying helplessly on the ground like a dead dog. How could this bald guy be so powerful? How dare you hurt me? Do you know who I am? I'm Nigel Lynn. Shut the hell up. With a crack, the bald man stepped on Nigel's leg and broke it. Nigel wailed in pain, with cold sweat appearing on his forehead. If you've got the nerve, tell me your names. Nigel gritted his teeth, his eyes flashing with rage. Listen up. My name is Brent Garcia, and this is my brother, Wade Garcia. The bald man in green announced loudly. Brent Garcia, Wade Garcia. Could it be? Are you guys the four scoundrels? Nigel's pupils shrank in fear. The four scoundrels. Everyone was shocked at the revelation. The Four Scoundrels was a notorious group of merciless and vicious outlaws that terrorized the southern province. These ruffians were infamous for their ruthlessness, and they would stop at nothing to achieve the goals. Wherever they went, destruction and calamity followed. Countless elites in the southern province were terrified of the Four Scoundrels, living in constant fear and anxiety. After learning the identities of the two men, all the girls panicked. This is bad. Claudia furrowed her brows. The Four Scoundrels were all martial artists with incredible internal energy. Brent and Wade were said to be even stronger than Thor. It was already difficult enough to deal with one person. Now, there were two of them at the same time, undoubtedly making things worse. If she were alone, she might still have a chance to escape. The problem was that she had to protect Sheila as well. With her previous injuries, Claudia had no chance of winning if she had to go up against two villains simultaneously. Brent. I'm warning you, everyone here is of elite status. You'd better not mess around. Nigel shouted bravely. Who cares if we cause trouble? You're nothing but a piece of shit. Brent kicked Nigel forcefully, sending him flying into the crowd. Amidst the screaming and chaos, Claudia suddenly sprang into action. She drew her dagger and lunged like a cheetah toward Brent's throat, hoping to take out one of the two opponents. In a fair fight, she knew that she was no match for either of them. By taking out one person, her chances of winning would significantly increase. Although it was a good plan, Brent was no fool. As the dagger came at him, he quickly dodged aside and slammed his shoulder into Claudia's chest. She grunted and staggered back, but before she could regain her footing, Brent punched her again with tremendous force. Desperately, Claudia lifted her arm to block the blow. There was a loud thud as Claudia was thrown back once more. Her arm hanging limply, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her internal injuries had opened up again. Ms. Doyle, if you were at full strength, you might be able to put up a fight with me for a few rounds. In this state, however, I suggest you surrender, Brent sneered at her. Claudia's face darkened, and she rushed at Nim again with her dagger. After they exchanged blows for a few rounds, Claudia was punched heavily in the stomach. She fell to the ground, unable to stand on her feet. It's over, it's all over. Even Mr. Lincoln and Ms. Doyle were defeated. Who else can stop them? What should we do? I don't want to die. Seeing Claudia defeated, the girls were on the verge of tears. Their last glimmer of hope was now gone. Wade, take Ms. Murray away. I want to have some fun with the beautiful ladies here first, Brent said with a wicked grin. Listen up. All of you. If you don't want to die, take off your clothes. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences of inciting my anger. As soon as he spoke, all the girls turned pale with fear. Were they going to be violated by this pervert? Ms. Murray, come with me. Wade, the bald guy in black, stepped forward and approached Sheila. Stop right there. Suddenly, Ruth grabbed a fruit knife and stood in front of Sheila. I'm warning you, don't come any closer, or I'll stab you. Get lost. Without saying another word, Wade swung his hand toward Ruth. The energy gathered around Wade's hand was strong enough to whip up a wind around them. At the crucial moment, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Wade's wrist. Wade's palm was frozen, inches from Ruth's face. You can bully the others, but you can't touch these two, Dustin said calmly. How dare you meddle in other people's business? You're asking for it. Wade's expression turned ugly, and he raised his other fist to strike at Dustin's head. Dustin snorted lightly and made the first move. He punched Wade in the chest, his moves as quick as lightning. With a dull thud, an invisible beam of energy pierced through Wade's back, shattering a wine bottle several feet away. Wade shuddered and slumped to the ground, unconscious. Wade. Brent's face contorted with anger. How dare you hurt my brother? I'll send you to hell. He charged forward like a wild bull and threw a punch directly at Dustin's face. Dustin caught his fist with one hand and squeezed it gently. With a loud crack, the bones in Brent's fist shattered. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Before he could register the pain, Dustin grabbed his collar and slammed him hard against the wall like a sandbag, creating a gaping hole. Brent hung helplessly on the wall, bleeding profusely and unable to move. I wanted to have a decent conversation with you guys, but you had to resort to violence. Dustin patted the dirt off his clothes indifferently, as if defeating both of the bald guys was a trivial matter. Everyone present was dumbfounded, was stunned at Dustin's nonchalance, including Sheila, Claudia, and Nigel. Dustin managed to defeat both of them with just 2 moves. It was unthinkable that 2 of the invincible 4 scoundrels would be trounced and beaten up by a thin, frail guy like Dustin. Were they dreaming? Was he the cowardly and useless guy they were making fun of before? Chapter 179. How was this possible? Nigel gasped, his mouth wide and his face full of disbelief. He finally witnessed how formidable the 4 scoundrels were in person. Either one of them could quickly snuff him out. It was perhaps fate that an expert like himself had been crippled by a doctor they looked down upon. Such a thing was practically unheard of. How is this guy so powerful? Claudia's eyes widened in shock and bewilderment. Initially, she had assumed that Dustin was an unsavory character who only knew how to resort to using dirty tricks up his sleeve, so she hadn't expected him to be so skilled in martial arts. He was miles better than her. He wielded such strength at such a young age, too. She was frozen on the spot once the revelation hit her that she was no longer a goddess among men. Dustin's way too cool. Sheila cheered as her eyes sparkled. After exchanging glances with one another, the rest of the girls also started looking at him in a different light. Not used to everyone's starstruck gazes on him, Dustin walked up to Brent before asking, "Tell me, who sent you here? Today's my day of reckoning anyway, so kill me all you want." Brent screamed through gritted teeth. "It's not like killing you guys will do me any good anyways. As long as you're willing to talk, I'll let you all live to see another day." Dustin said, "I'll die either way if I reveal anything." Brent replied solemnly. "You're referring to the spider venom in your stomach, right?" Dustin asked with raised eyebrows. He then pulled out a golden needle and stabbed it directly into Brent's abdomen. Immediately, a bulge was seen on Brent's abdomen. The bulge began moving violently as if something inside him was fighting for their lives. A few exhales later, the writhing stopped, and the bulge could no longer be seen moving. When Dustin pulled out the golden needle, it was now stained with a sliver of blackish liquid. "The venom is gone. You should be able to speak now," Dustin said flatly. How did you do that?" Brent gasped, and his expression immediately turned into one that was fearful and horrified. That was because the 4 scoundrels had actually been controlled by someone who led them venom all this time. The mere thought of resistance could inflict pain that was worse than death on the host. They had tried various ways to get rid of the venom, but not only did none of them have the slightest effect, they even aggravated the pain. However, The person in front of him had gotten rid of the spider venom in his body with a mere needle. These kinds of miraculous means were simply unheard of. I'm skilled in the art of poisons and venom, so if you wish to regain your freedom, you need to be honest and tell me everything. Dustin stated indifferently. After hesitating for a long while, Brent finally compromised, saying, "Fine, I'll tell you the truth, but you must promise to spare the both of us." Which sensible human would choose death over life? Done. Dustin nodded his head. To be honest with you, the person who ordered us to kidnap you was before Brent could finish his sentence. The doors to the room were forcefully kicked open. Xavier rushed hastily inside the room with a group of elite guards. He scanned the room and quickly found Brent. It's the four scoundrels again. Prepare to die. Without waiting for the crowd to react, Xavier bashed Brent's skull in with his fists. He was swift and brutal. Now, his hands were drenched in blood. Huh. Dustin narrowed his eyes. Did Xavier just kill him to silence him? Sheila. Claudia. Are you guys alright? Right after killing Brent, Xavier immediately turned around and asked Sheila and Claudia while wiping the blood off his hands. We're fine. It was a good thing Dustin came to our aid just now. Sheila forced a smile. Dustin? Xavier asked as he suddenly turned his head to look at the man. What are you doing here? Xavier asked with a condescending gaze. What a coincidence. Dustin replied indifferently. What do you mean, what a coincidence? You were there the last time Sheila got ambushed, and you're here yet again, so how can this be a coincidence? Xavier scoffed, glaring down at Dustin. Your point exactly. Dustin shot back. I suspect that you colluded with the four scoundrels to come up with a plan to get close to Sheila. Xavier accused. I can assure you it's not like that. Sheila spoke up before being interrupted by Xavier again. Don't be fooled, Sheila. We don't know where this guy is from or what his intentions are. Thus, he must be interrogated thoroughly for your safety. Apprehend this man for me at Onsel. At his command, the group of elite guards proceeded to cock the guns. Stop. I was the one who brought Dustin here, so I can guarantee that he isn't a bad guy. Ruth stepped forward, attempting to mediate the situation. Whether he's a bad guy or not, we'll know once we catch him. Xavier retorted. Hey, do you still have any sense left in that brain of yours? Can't you see that you're being cruel by apprehending an innocent person? Ruth was getting annoyed with Xavier's stubbornness. Who are you to talk sense to me? Get lost. Xavier screamed before lifting his hand to give Ruth a hard slap across her face, causing her to stagger and fall to the ground. Everyone could see 5 visible, bright red fingerprints on her face. Huh. Dustin gasped as his expression sank. His eyes flashed with anger. Are you crazy, Xavier? Why did you hit my friend? Sheila scolded Xavier while helping Ruth up. I was thinking about your safety, Sheila. I refuse to spare anyone who acts even remotely suspicious. Even if I have to be a villain today, I'll make sure to get rid of every threat to you. Arrest that punk. Kill him on the spot if he dares to put up a fight. At Xavier's order, all the elite guards attacked Dustin at once. Dustin merely let out a cold snort and started gesturing with his hands. Phew. 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 Golden needles shot out from his hands and accurately navigated their way to the various acupuncture points on the bodies of the guards. In no time at all of the guards seemed to be bound by a spell of some sort, as they stood frozen in place, unable to move. Do you want to die? Xavier shrieked as a scowl appeared on his face. He then immediately fished out his gun and fired at Dustin's chest. However, with a mere flick of a finger, Dustin swiftly sent 2 needles flying into the air. One needle landed on Xavier's shoulder, and another landed on his neck. His body instantly stiffened as his arms and legs became paralyzed, and this made it difficult for him to move a bit. What kind of sorcery is this? Xavier cried, his face full of shock. He was one of the top martial artists out there, so how could he be rendered immobile by 2 tiny golden needles just like that? Not only are you not that skilled or powerful, you still have the audacity to show up here and start hurling insults and beating the shit out of people. Dustin asked with an icy stare as he slowly approached him. Rhys. You'd better let go of me if you know what's good for you. If not, I'll make sure that you never leave here alive. Xavier sneered fiercely. You dare threaten me? This is for speaking out of turn. Dustin scoffed as he lifted a hand to slap Xavier's face. He then gave him another slap. This is for cursing me. After that, he gave him a harsh third slap. This is for your audacity to even lay a linger on a woman. The slapping continued non-stop for a while. Dustin showed no mercy as he kept delivering blow after blow onto Xavier's face. He delivered a slap after every sentence he uttered. The atmosphere in the room became tenser and tenser by the second. And this is for your stupid fucking face. Dustin roared as he delivered the most powerful slap he could muster, smashing Xavier to the ground. Everyone in the whole room became dead silent for a moment. Chapter 180. Everyone in the room was flabbergasted as they stared at Xavier, who'd been mercilessly battered and bruised. No one had expected Dustin to be so bold as to slap Xavier. Everyone knew that the Horst family was among the 5 most powerful families in the southern province. They were the top of the top. They were essentially untouchable. As an immediate heir, he was the rising star of the Horst family. So, no matter where he went, he'd have the stars laid out at his feet. No one had ever dared to humiliate him in public like this, much less slap him like a maniac so many times. Was this guy batshit crazy? Why you dare hit me? Xavier asked rhetorically. The corners of his eyes started twitching as he tried to put on a fierce expression. I'm not just going to beat you, I'm going to make sure you can never use your hands ever again. Dustin snorted and proceeded to stomp on his wrist, breaking it. Ah! Xavier wailed in pain as he broke out in a cold sweat, his expression twisted. It was a pity that he couldn't even move a muscle at the moment. Stop. Have you lost your mind, Rhys? Do you have any idea who Xavier is? How dare you hurt him? Claudia shouted angrily at Dustin. I don't care who he is. Anyone who dares mess with me will get a beating from me, Dustin replied flatly. Didn't he just slap you, Ruth? Come here and give him 10 slaps for me. Okay. Ruth exclaimed and started adjusting her shirt sleeves before going up to Xavier and slapping the shit out of him. How dare you hit me? How fucking dare you hit me? I'll beat your ass up. Ruth cursed with gritted teeth while venting her anger as she continued slapping him. Stop. Claudia yelled in rage and immediately stepped in to put a stop to everything. Get lost. Dustin sneered and slapped her after, sending her flying into the air. Why you dare hit me too? Claudia whimpered while covering her face as if she were in disbelief. Don't you think you deserve it? Dustin let out a snort. I saved your life on more than one occasion, and this is how you repay me. You didn't say a word when Xavier framed me, and you also acted as if nothing had happened when Ruth got slapped. So, why is it that you're turning against us after seeing Xavier get beaten up? Are all of the families who practice martial arts always this vengeful? Dustin snapped at Claudia. Claudia stuttered as her face turned bright red. She was stunned and speechless after being bombarded with a series of valid accusations. This even caused Sheila to be at a loss for words, as she simply did not know what she should do now. On one hand, there was the savior of her life, and on the other, a longtime friend. After getting caught up in the middle, she was at a loss for words. I'm done with him, brother-in-law. Ruth announced after she finally came to a stop. Her hands had become numb from all the brutal slapping. As for Xavier, his face had long since swollen enough to resemble a pig's head. He felt dizzy all over, as he didn't get any chance to catch his breath the whole time. I don't care what you say. The fact that you laid a finger on Xavier means that you're now an enemy of the Horst family. I'm afraid no one will be able to save your asses if you don't state your case right now. Claudia shrieked. Despite everything, the Doyle family had been friends with the Horst family for generations, so she couldn't possibly stand up for mere outsiders now. You want us to state our case, right? Fine. I'll grant you your wish, Dustin said and suddenly turned to face Sheila before continuing. May I know if the sachet in front of your chest is a gift from Xavier, Miss Murray? I'm not sure. All I know is that Claudia gave it to me, Sheila said with her head lowered. What if I told you it was from Xavier? Dustin continued to probe. Claudia felt that she had nothing to hide, so she immediately shot back. Xavier had to beg an expert to procure this sachet, and he had me deliver it to Sheila afterward. It was said to aid in one's sleep and nourish the soul, so why are you finding fault in this? It was said to aid in one's sleep and nourish the soul. What a load of crap. Dustin snickered before snatching the sachet off her chest and throwing it into a glass of wine. Gurgle, gurgle. The sound of bubbles could be heard as the sachet suddenly started expanding in size, as if hinting that there was something inside. Immediately after, a thin, red-colored snake slithered out of the sachet and began thrashing about wildly in the wine. What is that? It's a snake. My goodness, it's a snake. How horrifying. How can there be a snake inside the sachet? What if it bites someone? A sea of horrified looks could be seen almost immediately from the crowd. More and more started to murmur among themselves at the sight before them as their hearts raced with fear. How could this be? Claudia gasped and didn't know how to react to this. Do you know what this is, Miss Murray? Dustin probed while pointing at the small red snake. Sheila remained frozen on the spot as she shook her head, still reeling from her shock. This is called a serpent love charm and it can be used to confuse people's minds. Once the snake enters one's body, the charm will slowly take effect until the host completely falls head over heels for someone. The host's heart could even stop beating after that. Dustin explained plainly. That was a serpent love charm. Everyone in the room was stunned after they heard this. Even Claudia started feeling a little uneasy after hearing that. She did not expect that there would be a serpent love charm inside the sachet. I've only heard stories about it before, but I didn't know that such a thing even existed in our world. Utterly ridiculous, right? To think that he put a serpent love charm on her so that he could manipulate her feelings toward him. How shameless. So, Miss Doyle, do you still think that this sachet can aid in one's sleep and nourish their soul? Dustin asked sarcastically. Well. Claudia frowned, and her gaze subconsciously shifted to Xavier. She couldn't believe what was happening in front of her right now. Stop listening to his nonsense. Xavier spoke in defense immediately after coming back to his senses. What the fuck is a serpent love charm? I've never heard of this in my life. This sachet was gifted to me by someone else. I'm the victim too here. That's right. Even if there was a serpent love charm in the sachet, that doesn't prove that Xavier was the one who put it there. For all we know, some big shot could have set him up. Claudia roared. Yeah. Xavier's always been an upright and honest person, so he would never stoop this low. Nigel and the others also backed her up. Him. Honest. And upright. You've got to be kidding me. Dustin snickered. The serpent love charm only works if there is a pair of snakes, one female, and one male snake. Now that the female snake has appeared, we're only missing the male snake. Since you all still don't believe me, allow me to show you. With that, he waved one hand and sent 2 needles flying toward the archer between Xavier's chest and abdomen. His body spasmed as a pained expression took over his face. Soon after, he spat out a dark, black liquid. And thrashing around inside the black liquid was a thicker, reddish snake. The crowd was dumbfounded the moment they witnessed this.